credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood.
All right. Thank you, Bombargo, and welcome to another episode of The Anecdote. I'm joined today by Zach Schenken, founder of the Vitruvian Man Project. Welcome to the show, man.
Logan, thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate you stepping on. We kind of ran into each other over Instagram and kind of this men's health, new wave men's health space. And I think it's so fascinating. You know, there's guys like yourself building businesses and brands out of this. Somebody like myself who's just cheaply scouring Twitter and forums and WebMD blogs and a whole bunch of papers on sunning your nuts, you know, to try and better myself. So what you do, I think, is fantastic, and that whole space, I can't say enough good things about this new wave men's health space. Like it's given confidence. It's given me, I've never been able to see my stomach muscles. I can, for the first time since I was like 8, see my stomach muscles. But then there's not abs, it's not strong, but like I know that underneath there's actually a piece of muscular tissue. So it's crazy space, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I found it initially, you know, self-development more broadly the same way a lot of people do. And I heavily relate to like the abs thing because that was a huge part. Like I grew up as kind of like a doughier, chubbier kid and like played sports and stuff, but never looked the part of the athlete. And, you know, that was always a point of insecurity for me. So like my foray or entry into self-development was like, all right, how do I get in shape? How do I become a better athlete? How do I look more like an athlete, like the guys I see on TV? And then from there, it's this like endless spiral because you learn about weightlifting, and then that goes to nutrition, and then you learn about the scams of nutrition and like what's bullshit, what's not. And you start pulling on all these levers, and then, you know, moving further down the line, like I eventually studied biomedical engineering in school. And so like really getting into the granularity of like endocrinology and like all that stuff. I mean, I think it's super fascinating, and it's a big part of my life.
Did you say endocrinology?
Yeah.
So like, okay, so I talk about like endocrine disruptors, you know, can you touch on that on a little higher level on what the endocrine system is?
So the endocrine system is the system of the body governing hormone pathways and transmittance across the body. Hormones are arguably the most important chemicals that run through our body. They dictate our mood, they dictate our physiology and how our gene is constantly expressing itself. But what's really cool is because we have higher level thinking, we can actually change our behaviors, our intakes, and some of the variables to actually get our body to create different hormones, which is really, really cool. Like even just like a very simple example, vitamin D is actually a hormone. So vitamin is almost like a misnomer there. And our body creates it when we are exposed to sunlight. And so like the signal we receive is sunlight on our skin being the largest organ. And then our body creates the hormone of vitamin D, which has all these other like amazing cascading effects. But the endocrine system is super, super important. It mitigates, or it impacts much more than just how jacked you look, how much you perform in the gym. I mean, you can even think of an example like on the female end of the spectrum. Like when you're experiencing a full ovulation cycle, like the wave of emotion that you ride across that full month is entirely directed by the hormones that you experience. Even you can think of behavioral changes back when you're, you know, a pubescent boy and like you're starting to get really, really aggressive. It's because like your body's producing testosterone at a level it hasn't done before. Testosterone being the predominant aggressor hormone, but as well as like sex drive and performance and a lot of other stuff. So it's a super fascinating field. I'm no scientist. I will not claim to be a pharmacologist or anything like that, but I definitely study this stuff and I think it's super cool.
Yeah, I did not know that vitamin D was a hormone. So like I was taking vitamin D because, as you can see, I'm the palest guy in Canada, and we're like a land of pale. So I want to get more sun exposure, and that's part of the, you know, we'll talk about the sunning and stuff later. But like, so vitamin D in the winter, I was always just taking one, and a buddy had mentioned, is like, yeah, like I read this podcast, like he triple doses the recommendation for like northern hemisphere men to triple dose vitamin D. And a little anecdote on vitamin D is that of high performance athletes, it's the number one correlation to like across spectrum is vitamin D levels, which is kind of like of like high performance. Yeah, just kind of
Interesting. I didn't know
crazy.
that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. It doesn't surprise me. It has like, the more I learn about it, it has so many, like I said, amazing cascading effects. And then when you think about it from a higher level perspective, like the main thing that we can do to generate vitamin D is sunlight exposure. We as humans evolved over a very long time with a bunch of our skin exposed to the sun all the time. So like the more we can return to that more vital form of living, just being simpler, and we're going to talk about that, like being a little bit more reductionist, like just move to simplicity and expose your body to sunlight. Of course, you're going to be a more vital version of yourself than hiding in light, hiding inside blue light. I mean, skin cancer rates have risen and our bodies are spending less time in the sun. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane.
I want to tackle this this skin cancer sunlight exposure thing. Like, of course, like don't go sit out in the middle of Mexico when you just got off the plane and expect to get a tan in 3 hours. There's a lot of work on like early sunlight exposure, like getting those first morning rays will actually help you in the afternoon to mitigate like the I don't even want to say damage, it'll mitigate the stress of this on the skin that the sun would put, right?
Yeah.
Like some very crazy stuff with sunlight, and as creatures that came from stars and feast off of everything that it touches, we don't know. We don't talk enough about sunlight.
Yeah, I think obviously Andrew Huberman is a huge leader in the space of like neurology and stuff like that. And so he's been a big proponent, and people are starting to understand the value of getting, sunlight early in the day in our eyes. And that is like the really fascinating thing is that early sunlight exposure, it's not like you're, warming up the skin. The skin's like, ooh, we're going to get sun at 3 p.m. today. Like, let's not get burned. It's more like you're sending signals to your brain to be prepared for that day of sunlight. And it also, he talks about a ton of stuff with regulating your circadian rhythm and all these other things. And, I graduated from university back in May. So I've been working my job since then as an engineer. And, now that it's wintertime, like I wake up before the sun's out. I bike to work in the dark. I get there. I enter a windowless building and I don't see the sunlight because it goes down by 5. And so like, it's been a pretty tough little window here for both sunlight exposure and also my mental health. But yeah, it's super, super critical. So trying to like reorient my life to spend more time in the sun.
Yeah, simple as that. Like we're creatures of the sun, spend our time in the sun. Like I love the study on like outdoor learning and like kids' capacity of outdoor learning. Like that should be as simple as it. Like we're creatures who just need to be outside. And like we don't need to be shirt off all the time, but like just being outside, getting your eyes, your nose, like your skin needs to be on sunlight or needs to feel sunlight.
Yeah. And I think one thing, the more that I get into this, and definitely coming from a technical background, everyone loves to be like, oh, that's fascinating. What study? Like, what's the data on that? And I think that is important for us to like empirically prove some of this stuff, because you don't want to just move simply off conjecture. But I think a lot of things in health, I try to circle back to like, does it make you feel good? Like the days like you take a vacation out of a normal 9 to 5, the days that you spend fully on the beach, like you're tired when you go to bed, you feel really alive when you wake up, and the first thing you do is walk outside and catch the wind and the breeze and the sun in your eyes. Like those feelings are your body telling you you're doing something right. You don't have to necessarily be like a Stanford researcher and like reading all these papers to be like, oh, it makes sense for me to expose my body and my eyes to the sun and spend time outside and eat, clean food and high nutrient dense foods, which I'm sure we're going to get into, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, let's touch on red light therapy and sunning our nuts, I guess, because I've said it a couple times and I talked to you off air, like I'll just throw it in conjecturally because it's so out there. It's something that I found in this space, red light morning is, I guess I'll get your take on this. I'll do my morning workout in red light and not evening. And I guess when I can in Canada, I will read a book in my backyard and sun my nuts. And do you want to get into, I guess, both those things?
Yeah, I definitely can say that I envy you on both of those things because I haven't had the like locational opportunity to do so. I don't own property, so I'm in an apartment in Atlanta right now.
Mm.
So I think I would probably get either kicked out or potentially arrested if I were to go on my inward facing balcony and just let the world see.
Yeah.
Um, so sunlight direct exposure to my nuts is a future tense kind of thing for me, but
Yeah.
red light therapy as soon as the kind of the money makes sense, because unfortunately the tech right now, those panels are pretty expensive. But what data we do have on red light is super positive, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It's again like you can look at the studies, or you can just say what are the UV spectrum that the sun is sending to your body. Okay, what more closely replicates that? Red light, as opposed to the blue light and fluorescent light that we're constantly just poured onto. And so I
And like
think,
the mitochondria accepts red light, like that it's activated by red light. But it's like, so like the fuel house of our cells are activated by red light.
yeah, I mean
Son of
down
a
to a
bitch.
very cellular level, it's like it's a 1-to-1 analog. And going back to what we talked about at the beginning, with vitamin D being a hormone responded to by the signal of light, if you can like use technology to modulate that, i.e., red light exposure, then you're giving yourself free performance enhancing drugs. Because if every cell is working on overtime, all your mitochondria is just dumping ATP, which is the energy the cells use to do stuff, then you're going to be not only feeling excellent, but actually capable of a lot more, whether it's a 14-hour workday or 2-a-day sessions in the gym, whatever have you. But yeah, I think it's a space. When I do, like right now, I'm very early in my entrepreneurial journey. And
Mhm.
so, I do a lot of like law of attraction manifestation stuff, like goal setting. And so when I'm writing
Yep.
out like what my perfect day looks like that I aspire to have, like that's definitely incorporated into the routine. I don't know how much you follow Ben Greenfield, but he's like a huge researcher, biohacker kind of character and has tried everything top to bottom. And his protocols currently definitely include that early workout under the red light. So I'm curious, what's your experience been with that? Like even just anecdotally, like what's the feeling?
Yeah, so like so the machine is not hot at all, but your skin like starts motoring. Like that's the only way to describe it. Like it starts kind of like you can feel it's not warmth, like it's not warm to the touch at all, but you can feel warm on your cells. So like instantly right away, I'm just like, yeah, this like did make sense. Like I'll do, push-ups in my Saul shorts and then pull-ups and like I'm a very primitive guy. I don't have an at-home gym other than a 10-pound set of weights, like the lift cords, bands, rubber bands, and a pull-up. And that's how I do my at-home workouts, so my daily micros, like micro workouts. So I'll do if I ever walk past the station, I have to do reps to fail. That's how I do the workout. So like it's discipline enough to keep me going. I use the muscles, and if my time frame is eons, I'm getting better every day. I'm doing, a tenth of a more pull up every day, right? So
Yeah.
but like, yeah, back to the red light thing. Yeah, it just makes my cells feel warm. I feel like my complexion is better, but I can only get 3 sessions in a week. Like I wish that I could get, wake up with 7 full ones, but it's just at this point not doable.
What's the limiting factor? Just like your current lifestyle, or like
Oh yeah. Yeah, 2 gremlins yelling dad.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely aspire and I'm excited about the fatherhood phase in my future, but I'm definitely not necessarily racing to get there because life changes a lot.
It definitely does. Yeah. Yeah. You were complaining about being tired off air. I was like, man, brother, I was up at 5:30, chase those 2 hooligans around. That's a good way to do deadlifts. So like you got 30-pound sacks and like you got to
Yeah,
squat
yeah,
them up and
yeah.
down. And I'm such a micro workout purist. So like when I think about picking up my boys, I will like do it in form and like and really I'll draw attention to the muscles that I want to work on. So like, if it's a forearm muscle, like bend my wrists and like work them backwards, or like lift them up a couple times. And like you like if you make it a workout, and it's like any type of work, like whether it's going down the stairs, just like I get to go down the stairs, workout, grab a water, come back up, right? like
Yeah.
that, it's just a workout. That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, human beings, when you just look at the design, we are clearly kinetic, like meant
Mhm.
for movement, not meant to sit. That's been another tough part about my engineering job, is that like there's sitting desks there, and I didn't want to be the new guy that like walks in and like, hey, can I have a standing desk? But like I had like I'm speaking to you right now on a standing desk, and I've
Mhm.
had this specific desk that I built since back in high school, and I took it to college, and like so I've been a standing work person for a long time, and then to jump into sitting like a normal like 9 to 5 slave like everybody else, I
Mhm.
like my body reacted strongly. Like I got
Oh
back
yeah.
pain out of nowhere. I mean, like I'm a kid by all intents and purposes, and I'm very fit. I train, I stretch, all this stuff. And I started getting hip pain, back pain. I'm like, what's going on? And it's just because I'm spending like 8 hours a day sitting. So like when my bosses step out, I do like all kinds of weird stretches and movements on the ground. Like I'm looking real primal in the office, but gotta
You
get it
have
in.
to. Yeah. Like I often will eat lunch by myself because like everybody else goes to the bar or whatnot. And I pack a lunch because I drive 40 minutes. And so like before I eat, I'm like, okay, I'll rip a set out, like stretch, like because I've been sitting at this desk and then I'll eat. Like I have to make sure my body feels like fit for food. Like I want my meal to be so enjoyable. I don't want neck pain. I don't want, crack my knuckles. Like I want to make sure it's good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing on the internal is gonna bother me during this lunch, right? So
I love that.
yeah. Another thing I wanted to get into was testosterone, and we kind of touched on it a little bit. So like when you talk about this again, as out there as sunning your nuts is, and highly recommend everybody try it. As long as your neighbors aren't around, you're in a space where you're free, I guess. This natural boost of testosterone, like I talked about it, and a couple of guys in my circle who also work out, they're like, what? Like these guys work out where they're in our group of 2 to 3 days a week where we're like now serious about the gym, which has only happened in the last like month and a half, 2 months, right? This essentially since football season's done, but whatever. Natural ways to boost testosterone. I don't know where you want to start with it because it includes pretty much everything that we do, but the mic is yours.
Yeah, I mean, definitely an open-ended question, but I think that we can start kind of on the sun nutting or nut
Yeah.
sun nutting thing,
And
whatever. Sunning your
getting
balls,
yeah, or like vitamin
exposing
D.
your
Yeah.
testicles to sunlight directly is based on the limited like clinical studies they've done, seems to indicate that there is benefit there. I tend to land a little bit more on the like reductionist mindset with this. It's like, did we evolve in a place where this was commonplace? Yeah, probably. I don't think it's like the one key to turn you into a superhuman athlete. It's not going to be akin to anabolic steroids if you're looking for results like that. It's just not going to be that big of an increase. But I do think more broadly, like sunlight exposure, whether it is to that direct area, um, or your body at large, that's a huge one. And so the benefit of doing it to that direct area is that it's a local region. Like we can look at the body has local and global effects, and so the endocrine system operates in both cases. We can do things with, I mean, even like massaging your lymph nodes, right? Like you can have an effect directly and locally by touching certain areas of your body, but you can also have broad effects. Like a great T booster is just sleeping well.
Mhm.
Dark room, cold room, cover your eyes, nose breathe. Like optimizing your sleep is probably bar none the best performance enhancer, testosterone enhancer. And I think with the testosterone enhancement discussion, it's important to delineate like exogenous and like adding to T, or really just allowing your body to get to the level it should and is potentially capable of.
Mhm.
It's a foundational hormone for men, and we and our bodies are designed to produce it at a high level. Everybody's is different based on epigenetic factors, but what you decide to do on the day to day consistently defines how your genome is being expressed. Like a ton of genetic disorders are coming out now as being there's almost no data in clinical studies that can separate environmental factors from genetic predisposition. because you can't separate it. Like the human exists in an environment. So even if we study directly, like, okay, the parent did this and had this gene, the kid had this gene, and they both ended up being alcoholic. Well, maybe you had a predisposition for it, but we also can't separate the fact that you grew up in a home of an alcoholic and you had trauma and all these other environmental factors. So when we think about testosterone too, it's like, yeah, are you potentially a low T person? Like, were you born with a parent that had a shit diet, was overweight, potentially did actually super detrimental things like smoked or drank when you were pregnant? Whatever you're born with, the best thing you can do is say, what are the biggest levers I can pull on? And then let me start working on those. So forcing yourself under a tremendous amount of stress using heat, cold, and training effort to force your body to react. So train really hard, expose yourself to really, really hot heat, really, really cold, and you're going to activate kind of this archaic nature of our cells, because our cells haven't forgotten the thousands and thousands of years that we evolved. And to save us and protect us and get us here, we had to be able to get through all of those things. And so you're going to release a lot of really cool stuff. Like with heat exposure, you get growth hormone. And because the endocrine system is this beautiful dance of like hormones that work together and in synchronicity, when you get some of them, you get more of them. And so testosterone is one that everyone loves to talk about, and it's beyond critical, but it dances well with a lot of these other ones like vitamin D and GH and all this other stuff. So that would be, I mean, the biggest lever, if you're just a regular person listening to this and you're thinking like, do I not have low T, or could I optimize whatever I have even without doing blood work and knowing for sure? Well, sleep better. Wake up and go to bed at the exact same time every day, including weekends. Make sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours per night. Train hard once a day if possible, 3 times a week if at minimum. And if you can get into hot and cold, do it. Like cold is going to be good for alertness and just feeling kind of positive, things like norepinephrine and all that stuff. But the heat is going to get you some of the growth factor, the recovery, as well as kind of the boost in testosterone, if you will.
Yep.
So yeah.
And I want to keep it on the natural side, because I've never taken a T booster. I'm not like the liver king. I don't look like them, but I'm not on HGH or lying about anything I'm taking. So next thing I wanted to move was like natural T from food. And so this one kind of shocked me, is like how critical butter is for young men's development. Like, on our house, butter almost goes with every meal, because animal fats are huge for especially young men testosterone. So like, I don't know if this is in your area expertise, but like simply eating meat, good starches, high animal fats is going to increase your testosterone naturally. And then sleeping and nose breathing. Like I've got a bad family jowl. And I started nose breathing because I read that James Clear book, and I had bad allergies. I was on a heavy daily prescription allergy med, always sneezy. I had fat face, the jowl, didn't really sleep well. So, you talk about like going to the gym 3 times a week, natural T boost. I guarantee you, people will start feeling better if they put a small piece of tape and learn how to nose breathe at night and eat meat, animal fats, and water. Like, honest to Christ, I did nothing. I never even worked out to like this last like 6 months. And I just nose breathe and changed my diet to like a meat and animal fat first choice. Like it has to be dense in those loads. And I lost like 25 pounds. Like my allergy pill is gone, done. Like I don't have it anymore. Like I don't have a family jowl. I changed my jaw shape. Like nose breathing and eating and sleeping. That is nose breathing and sleeping well, or eating. Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think what's tough about the diet, training, nutrition space, broadly speaking, is that there's so much noise. Everybody's trying to sell you something, and the people that are trying to sell you something, unless it's like a training plan, which is just like, it comes down to the marketing. But as far as like diet, if it's a consumable thing or a supplement, they want to hit on the trick, the easy flip, the shortcut, basically. So, take this fat burner pill, take this pre-workout, take this whatever, these amino acids, all these kind of things. And if it comes in a blue raz super electricity pop flavor, like it's probably not going to be as good for your body as eating some organ meat, or like you said, raw animal fat, like rendered animal fat, whether it's ghee or butter or kefir. All these things, it's just a return to simplicity. Like, let your body do what it has learned to do for so long, and stop trying to feed it essentially like just like chemicals,
Plastic chemicals,
has a better
man.
place going in a car than a human being. That's really fascinating with the animal fat stuff. I've been probably over the last 6 months working my transition towards like a more whole food, animal based kind of diet. I've run the gambit. I've kind of tried it all over the years, like the super low fat, low carb diet where it's like just super lean meats, like just chicken breast, shrimp, rice, like the traditional bodybuilder stuff that you see a lot. And then I've tried like the really low calorie, high dense foods that you see with like Greg Doucette, and like the sugar-free syrups and all this stuff that can fill your stomach really well. But satiety is a huge factor that I'm starting to get into, because like I'm an eater. So it's always been hard for me to like kind of fill myself and then stop beyond going like and keeping eating more than I need.
You got to listen to your body, right? If your body's hungry, it's like it's telling you need more calories. Like, so like the under eating and overeating thing is something that always just blows my mind. Like, your body will shut you off if it's treated properly, or tell you when to. Like, it's simple as that. It's primal.
Yeah. And those satiety signals to your brain aren't just like, we do have stretch receptors in the stomach, which is like, okay, if my stomach is physically full, like if it's really bloated with water and lettuce and all the other stuff you can shove down there, like you will be able to stop eating. But also, if you just eat a pound of fatty grass-fed beef, like you're going to be full for like the day, because it's a good amount of it's like 1,000 calories in meat, and it's like easily digestible. It's got great dense calories, fat and nutrients, and your body's like, oh, that's what we needed. Like, we'll turn the switch off until dinner time.
Yeah. That, and maybe throw a runny egg on the side, and a slice of avocado, and you've got as good of a meal as you could put in your body, nutritionally wise. Like,
100%.
It's a beautiful thing. Okay. I guess I want to touch on a little one more thing, I guess, or maybe a couple more things on this testosterone side. The study on polyester on male dogs shocked me. Like, I don't know how that came across me. But then I saw like Solbra and these guys talking about polyester, and especially polyester gish, polyester underwear. And so like as soon as I read that the dog study about like the shrink in the testicles, a reduction of energy. And so I guess for backwards up, for people who are just listening to this and don't know what I'm talking about, they put a half set of dogs in linen, cotton, and polyester, something like that. And the polyester dogs showed reduction in testicle size, reduction in mood. Like, it was so alarming that we shouldn't have polyester on our nether regions, that like it was a cold turkey, like went through anything with polyester out. Like, right, I may have been too hardcore, but like I'm a cotton, linen maximalist now. Like, and it feels better. Like, you sleep better. It sleeps cooler. Like, I changed my sheets to silk. Like, yeah, it feels better. And then last one is semen retention. I don't know if you want to touch on that one, on the life force that's within us, but
dude, I'm happy to touch on both, and I'm trying my best with I'm incrementally, I think I'm doing less cold turkey with the polyester. I'm like just like little bags at a time, taking stuff to Goodwill and then trying to buy back only like cotton options. Definitely like the underwear is like kind of a non-negotiable. That's going to be like a big next step. And so, yeah, that stuff's pretty interesting. I got like organic cotton sheets and everything. Eventually we'll get like silk when I'm big boy balling. But I think that, yeah, that stuff is another one where it's like, okay, what were the materials accessible to us when we were more primal versions of ourselves, when we were evolving, when human beings' bodies were learning? Okay, it's like, what can you get directly from nature? And it certainly isn't some polyweave that comes to us from DuPont. Like, I know we talked about from like a little bit of a conspiracy level, but like some of these big players, like they're putting you in plastic prisons, including the clothes you wear. So try to get back to as much organic stuff as you can. That one's a little bit simpler. Once you expose yourself to the data, it's like, okay, I can start working towards it. It's hard because many, and arguably most clothes. I mean, even the sweater I see you wearing right now, right? Like the neckline has elastic in it, right?
Oh, I hope not. This is an old, like I think it's a 90s Hilfiger cotton. So yeah, there might be some elastic in it, but it's my Sunday. I like wearing this instead of like a Bengals jersey because it's like a little more classy. Like but I like, who's he cheering for? The orange, right? It's orange, right? Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's
so,
funny.
but you're probably right that there, and I'm not looking at this.
I'm not trying to make you throw out your favorite sweater. It's just,
no, I'm not gonna. I will tell you to fuck right off. Like this is my favorite orange sweater, right?
No, so. It's just one of those things where you got to be selective, but also lean back into the 80-20. Like if you can get the most important stuff right, like sleeping in good sheets where sleeping is 8 hours a day. You're rubbing up on those sheets. Like that's important. Sleep naked if you're a guy or a woman. Just like let your body breathe. And then, if you're going to wear underwear all day, cotton, and then I would also encourage you to not wear underwear if that's an option. But then, semen retention, this is like a big one. I don't think that we have enough time to talk on all of it. I think that I'll attack it kind of twofold. So again, there is the data and the studies and stuff. You're not going to be able to go out and find like really cool studies that are like, holy cow, 100% increase in testosterone because this guy didn't nut for a month. But I will say that often paired with masturbation and ejaculation is going to be pornography. And that is like a universally evil construct. It's detrimental to relationships. Even if you want to go really data heavy, because I do think like people that shit on pornography often have that like religious angle. Like it's unholy. Like, do you love your partner? And I think that's all very true. But like, if you want to be founded in fact, like go listen to Andrew Huberman talking about like desensitization in the brain to pornography. Like you're increasing the stimulus, but it's not linked to any physical action. So you're actually just breaking your brain and disconnecting from what is really, really critical and important for us as human beings with sex. Like there is the procreative aspect. Like as men, we want to spread our seed and procreate. So it's important that we use that energy that used to be done to build empires, down woolly mammoths, really accomplish a lot. And instead of just blasting it into a tissue and throwing it away, like hold on to that for a little bit, a couple days, a week, 2 weeks, a month, like whatever your sexual access is, like whether you have a long-term partner or you're a single person, if you exercise a little bit of elective control, the anecdotal experience, like I will talk about for me, is like, I've been off pornography for a long time because I just think it fucks your brain and it's like a non-negotiable. So I think that's the best place to start is wean yourself off. And it's not easy. You're chemically addicted. Find an accountability partner, another male friend that you have access to, and try to hold each other accountable. I mean, like even with what I'm building with my program, a whole week, it's like a 12-week program, a whole week that I talk about kind of the dark side, the stuff people don't want to talk about. And pornography is a big part of that whole week. Pornography is a main focus because as a man, like you have no business watching it, not only because it's going to make you masturbate and ejaculate, but also it's ruining your capacity to be your best self, be your best partner to your future mate. There's a ton of data on like divorce rates when pornography is involved, all this stuff, but pornography is a non-negotiable. You got to get it out, start there. And then in the last probably 6-8 months, I've been as consistent as possible with semen retention, barring like being with a partner. And it's unreal. Like the closest thing I can describe is like, you feel like you're playing life on God mode. Like you start recognizing synchronicities in your life. You have ideas come to you that otherwise like wouldn't happen. You can work
picking up on social cues. Like I think that's where like, there's like some, 100%.
Yeah. You start picking up. No, you're good. Yeah. I can ramble. So definitely cut me off. But no, you start to pick up on, like both intermale as well as female social cues. You're also it's out of your control, but you're going to start to exude extra levels of confidence, especially when you're around women, because all that like testosterone, all the stuff that you're holding in, it's not just going to turn you into this feral, horny bastard. Like it's allowing you to be like your most masculine self. Like you're harnessing the divine masculine, which nobody talks about. Like there's always this,
No.
all this noise about divine feminine, but like you hold within you the ability to create life. That is magic. It is power. And if you just throw that away, whether it's meaningless hookups, drunk sex, or like worst of all, pornographic
Addiction.
masturbation, like you're just throwing away a superpower, in my opinion. And it sounds
Big
very
time.
pseudoscience-y, very like, I don't know. It can sound a little woo-woo, but my encouragement to those that are skeptical is, one, look at the data on specifically pornography, but there are some studies on semen retention, but two, worst case scenario, try it for a month. Like hold yourself accountable and try it. You will notice wildly different things in your life.
I completely agree. I picked that up on a buddy who was just like, you have to stop. And I was like, because like, you grow up in the locker room and it's like, oh, everybody's talking about porn. Like it's like it's like it's our football team, the weather, girls, and porn, right? So like once you when you evolve from that really horny 14-year-old and finally get over that, there's great things to be done by men, and there's this meme out there that's like men accomplish greater things when it's harder to see women's boobs.
Yeah,
it's just a fundamental fact, right? So
yeah.
Where do we want to go next? This is fantastic. I guess we can talk about gut health a little bit, how it's kind of tied to the whole system. This is something my wife is big on, and changed our diet a little bit on this. I'm a sauerkraut fan, so we included more raw sauerkraut, so that's good. As an old German, that's great for us. But I guess touch on anything you know about gut health and how that leads, how that affects the man.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think the gut is, they call it the first brain, because like if you buy into the school of evolution that we evolved from like the single cell and eventually became these kind of primordial creatures, we had just a digestive system before we had evolved this like larger brain. So the gut brain barrier is pretty well studied, and it's super connected. So the endocrine system, all these signaling pathways go straight from your brain to your gut and vice versa. So it's really, really important as far as how you're going to feel on the day to day, not only perform, but like emotionally and actually just like feel what, your gut health is super critical. So like for those that haven't taken time to analyze kind of their intake, it's worthwhile, and experiment and see what works for you. Everybody's gut's going to be a little bit different. You think evolutionarily, people came from different regions of the world. The animals they were eating was different. The fruit they had access to was different. So slight variations will be important. But as far as broad advice, have some sort of fermented vegetable. So sauerkraut, I like sauerkraut as well. Have a little bit of German in me as well. Actually a lot, like half. And then I also do kimchi. I just like to mix up the flavor. But in a lot of these studies, when they go to the blue zones on Earth, like the places where people are physically living the longest currently today, one of the unifying factors is that they eat some sort of fermented plant or vegetable. So that's a great way to get natural probiotics that are not going to be harmful to your body. A lot of cultures that can go in there and do a lot of good work for you. Things to avoid that go in there and kind of nuke the gut microbiome is all of these artificial sweeteners, sucralose, preservatives. All of those chemicals are basically going in there and kind of like slash and burn, clearing out everything that's good. It's killing all the good bacteria that's living in there. And what results from that is common experiences that many people have had. You come out of a meal and you're gassy, you're bloated, you're burping. All of those things are super common, like almost universally so. And I had that experience so much. I just thought people think it's normal because everybody experiences it. But there's like a delineation between common, which means a bunch of people have it happen, and normal, which means it's what's supposed to be done by our body. And so just because everybody's gassy and everybody's bloated when you eat doesn't mean it's what's happening. Now that I'm animal-based, I mean, it is remarkable. Like I'll eat a meal, a good amount of food. Like I'm a big guy. I train really hard, like pound of grass-fed beef. For lunch, it's like a pound of grass-fed beef, like 1 to 3 bananas, an apple. Like I'm eating like a good amount of food, and I'm not bloated. Like I'm full, I'm satiated, but like there's no burping, there's no gassing. Like it's amazing. And like when I compare it to growing up, growing up in my house, it was like incomparable, like very American, traditional, not great
Oh yeah,
diet.
man. I was stuffed full of soy growing up, like just stuffed
Yeah.
full.
Dude, I mean,
Yeah.
I had a very soy upbringing, like literally soy
Oh,
milk. Like I never had whole
oh
milk
yeah.
growing up. We had like butter substitutes. I can't
Oh
believe it's
yeah.
not butter. I mean, all that stuff, and then like cooked in Pam. Anyway, that it's a secondary story, I suppose. But for the
Well,
gut,
we're gonna
it's
get to it
really
next. Yeah.
yeah.
A little bit of seed oil stuff.
Yeah, but like to close up on the gut stuff, try to get one serving of a fermented vegetable. So like literally just one forkful of like kimchi or sauerkraut a day. It's going to do wonders. Um, and then try to get yourself to remove as many of these sweeteners and preservatives as possible. A big place that I think of people bringing it in would be like your morning coffee, or if you're drinking any sort of soda or any sweetened drinks, make sure that those drinks are sweetened with either stevia or honey or agave. And if nothing at all, it's just like fruit sweeteners. Like the sweet things that you should eat should have grown on something.
Mm-hmm.
Like fruit is really sweet. It's the candy that God and nature gave us. Go eat that and transition yourself away from these super hyper concentrated sweeteners, because not only are they not helping you reach your goals, but they're really going to make you feel gross along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my natural sweetener is just like unpasteurized honey, like local down at Swift Current. It's like
Nice.
I literally eat it by the spoonful, and yeah, I add it to everything. Like I made like a beef teriyaki tonight, and like the sweetener is Swift Current Saskatchewan honey farming. So it's
Nice.
that's honey's a life force too. I love that stuff. So yeah, we're gonna try to now dance around some of the seed oil stuff, I guess. So I'm gonna just get this out there. My stance. We have a lot of farmers listening to this podcast. I'm a huge fan of growing canola. I'm a huge fan of canola in the industrial spaces. But as far as my body, I choose not to ingest vegetable fats by any means, and that's soy, sunflower, canola oil. Like I said, I want butter, animal fat, beef tallow. And I guess I was going to touch on another thing before I get into seed spit on beef tallow and sleep. I was a kid with acne growing up, and I polyester sheet, and I tried to use a Walmart face cream, like man's cream, and I could never battle it. And it could have just been growing out of it, finally growing out of that stage. But switching up my sheets and switching up like my pillowcase, especially, and switching up my men's moisturizer, I went to a beef tallow moisturizer, and my acne is almost non-existent now. So, but anyways, seed oil stuff. Can you touch on how bad this soy oil is for our endocrine system? Because that is primal. That is what it's fucking up.
Definitely. I cannot go directly to the mechanistic level. Like I don't think I have that level of granularity, or haven't prepped it specifically for this podcast. But to speak broadly on kind of seed oils and as compared to natural animal fats. So for those not listening or not familiar, seed oils come from the seeds of plants. So canola oil, canola being like the flour taken from the seed of the flour. And any of these varieties, sunflower oil, even
soy oil.
A lot of avocado oils are tainted with kind of the seed of the avocado. So what you, generally speaking, Crisco, for instance, Crisco, kind of a very traditional seed oil, canola oil, was first introduced, and its first commercial use was for machine lubricants. It was only transitioned when the brand Crisco started using it for cooking oil. So I think
when the war ended,
all you need to know about its relative use or functionality in the human body. It has its place. I think like the growth and use of it is effective and efficient for what those intended uses were originally for. It just happened to be a cheap substitute for some of the cooking and other things that it is now transitioned into. And now many of the processed things you see on a shelf are going to contain some amount of those oils. I mean, I grew up like spraying the pan with Pam spray, which is a canola oil, every single day, cooking whatever it was, whether it was eggs, etc. And so I mean, we collectively, the human population, until a lot of these studies were coming out, especially with the rise of like carnivore MD, like Dr. Paul Saladino has been a huge proponent of and mouthpiece for condemning the use and consumption, I suppose, of seed oils because how they affect and disrupt our endocrine system. What's interesting is that the seed oils, your body is not capable of processing them and discharging them naturally. So where they end up being stored is in our fat cells, and they make the fat cell more resilient to being broken down, meaning it's going to be harder to lose the fat, harder to lose the weight. And two, there's nothing to break it apart. It just sits in there permanently. And so when you're eating, for instance, like a soy-fed chicken, the soy and seed oil that is in that chicken is still in the fat cells of the chicken. So making sure whatever meat you get is sourced and not grain-fed, not soy-fed. And then when you're cooking, try to use things like all organic ghee, butter, animal fat, rendered animal fat. I mean, for me, like every single day I cook my grass-fed beef into like 2 patties for my lunch. I don't even actually oil the pan because I use 85/15 beef. And so the actual fat that's breaking down out of that patty is enough lubricant for the pan. So you typically need less oil than you think. It's common practice to just drizzle a bunch on there. And I think you can avoid it. And if you want to stick with an oil, make sure that you get 100% virgin olive oil, because that is also safe to consume and actually like really, really good for your skin and body as well. I personally landed more in the animal fat category, but if you can source high quality extra virgin olive oil, that is also another substitute as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've touched on a lot of things, and I had a one more here thing. I kind of on like it's more of this mental framing, this mental mindset. We talked about like this power of 1%. There's a whole space we could probably do another episode on this, but
yeah.
I guess we should just touch on one before we let you out. But like Becoming Supernatural, that book by Dr. Joe Dispenza is a big book in this kind of men's health space. I'm not sure if you read it, and if so, if you want to touch on that as our closing point and kind of work that into the mental framing of yes, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So I won't belabor and or spoil the point of the Becoming
Great
Supernatural
book,
but a perennial self-development book. It will legitimately change your life if you read it and take to its practices. So Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, it's a must read. I'll kind of leave that there. But more broadly, as far as mindset stuff, I'm a huge student of and attempted practitioner of the school of Stoic philosophy. It came to me initially through, Ryan Holiday's works, but eventually you get back to the place where you arrive at like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, kind of the perennial Stoic tome. Really, really remarkable power in that. But to speak, or I guess to be reductionistly describe Stoicism in kind of one sentence, it's controlling the controllables and not caring about the rest. So much of our life is outside of our hands, but we spend almost all of our attention in those things. What did so-and-so say to me? What's going to happen in the future? What if something goes wrong? All of these kind of this conversation, this internal dialogue, we spend a lot of time on the uncontrollables. And I've talked on my podcast before about whether you are past state focused, present state focused, or future focused. If you're focused in the past and your mindset is dwelling on, this thing that happened, I'm lamenting the past, whatever bad action, loss of a loved one, whatever it is, you're going to be very depressive. That is considered a depressive state, like when you're in the past. And then when you're always future focused and what could happen, I'm worried about the outcome, I'm concerned, that's anxiety. So anxiety lives in being focused on what we can't control outside of us, in front of us. And then depression is dwelling on what's behind us, what could have been, what was, etc. But
they're both mind viruses.
Pardon?
They're both mind viruses. I consider, like, they're both parasitic. Like, and you'll touch on here about living in the now, but like,
yeah, I definitely think what's really hard but also beautiful is that everyone is a victim of it, and everyone And it's very easy to fall back into it because we're very like, especially if you're a goal oriented person, you have plans, you literally have a calendar that like can span into 6 months, a year, 5 years. So you're always thinking about what's in the future. So it's very easy to get anxious. And then our life is riddled with hard things. So the things that are behind us, you can often find yourself going back to and being worried about. So it's easy to fall into that depressive or that anxious state. But if you can discipline yourself and fall back into the present state, another great book, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, the only moment you have control over, this goes back to Stoicism. What's in my control? As far as time, right now, you and me right here, the words that I'm saying to you is all in my control. Like what I choose to do with this moment and this moment and this moment as they tick by is all that's within my hands. So I can't worry about me going to work tomorrow and the conversations I'm going to have with my boss and the deadlines I have to meet. And I also can't worry about how unproductive I was on this one day last week and like why I'm beating myself up about all that. That's just wasted time and energy, fully out of your control. But if you return to the present moment and focus on what you can control, life becomes a lot less mentally stressful, and you also are able to have a lot further and more powerful output.
That's very well put. Like the power of now and becoming supernatural. They're so intertwined, but you need to read them both. And then Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I try to get 1 or 2 pages of that book. I'll try to pick it up once a month and just be like, okay. And I've read it front to back a couple of times, but like I just dive into a random page. Like I'll just turn to it, but like, okay, I'm going to read these 10 and go from there. And it's such profound stuff to not let those mind viruses take over you. Like you said, you only control the now. And if you hone your body into the now, and it is so powerful. Like it's almost magic. Like I think a lot of this stuff, it Graham Hancock talks about like the knowledge you seek will find you someday. And like this stuff starts snowballing in such a way that it's like, son of a bitch, I'm feeling better than I did yesterday. And I don't care about yesterday because I'm working on what I do now. And like, what can I do to better myself now? But you don't focus wholeheartedly on the daily. How does that quote go? You worry about the day to day in the macro level, and in the micro level, you look at the long term, right?
Yeah, I think it's like work in days, measure in decades.
Yeah, well, kind of along the same thing, right? Like in the now, you have an infinite time frame, and in the infinite time frame, you live in the now, and it's truly a beautiful thing. But I gotta get running here. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to pitch what you do, because like I said, I think what you guys are doing in this mental health space is life-changing. I haven't followed you for a long time, but this movement is truly powerful, and I encourage anybody to reach out to Zach if they're interested in any of this stuff or just trying to be a better man or human being. So I'll let you take the floor here for a couple minutes and tell everybody what you do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the kind words, Logan. And so a little bit about what I do. I run a self-development program for intellectually curious men trying to become the best version of themselves, and do it alongside other men themselves. So that is known and called the Vitruvian Man Program, a broader subcategory of kind of what I'm working on, the Vitruvian Man Project, which is inclusive of my personal development. I chose the name Project because I look at every man as an ongoing project. There's always room for improvement, and I claim no level of perfection. I'm just somebody who's really fascinated and always curious about becoming the best version of himself. And I wanted to share the lessons I've learned up until this point with other men to let them unlock themselves. And so that's what I do with the program. So it's a 12-week self-mastery course. And the name Vitruvian comes from the famous sketch from Leonardo da Vinci, the Vitruvian Man. You're probably familiar with the circle and the square and the kind of idyllic proportioned male physique. And so the idea is that at the center, you have to develop your body. You have to discipline yourself. You have to take care of your physical body. But as men, we are also capable of much, much more. And so the program has 3 kind of main through lines: nourishing mind, body, and spirit. And like Da Vinci himself, who was this polymath, he was an engineer, a botanist, an anatomist, a fine artist, all of these things. We are capable of a lot more than most people push themselves to be. So becoming the most fit version of yourself is centric, but also working on your mindset along the way and preparing yourself and goal setting for the next steps of life, alongside men doing the same thing. So if any of that sounds interesting to yourself, I am always looking for the next group of men to come through the program. You can reach out to myself on my personal Instagram at ZDSCHENKEN. Also at Twitter with the same handle. And then I also, if you want to follow kind of clips from my podcast and more specifically the brand, you can follow at Vitruvian Gentleman. I'll let you guys Google search that name and spell it out.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
we'll
put it in the show notes as well. I appreciate
yeah,
that. But yeah, if you're that man looking to make the serious investment in himself, and take that next step towards becoming the best version of yourself, I would love to have you. So please reach out and we can look at that.
I'm going to leave with one quote, because like a lot of this stuff sounds like it's like there's so many steps to becoming, you know, the Vitruvian man, like just a better version of yourself. And I'd said it once on this podcast, but I can't remember what it was about. But there's a man and the horse in the forest and it's foggy and the man can't see his way through the forest. And the horse says, "Can you see your next step?" And the man says, "Yes." And the horse says, "Well, you have to take that." And that's the thing. Like, it's just baby steps. You're not going to be able to see your way out of the forest right away. I didn't know this version of Logan could ever exist. And if I did, I would have been like, son of a bitch. But I took the next step. My journey started with, I want a more meat and animal fat diet, and I'm going to breathe better at night. So what I tape my mouth, I journal, but I don't think that comes into physical health, but that's more mental health. Just these baby steps, like don't go to the gym 3 times a week and start hating yourself and hating the person you're trying to become. Take that next step and try to get your way through the foggy forest is all I can say. So, I thank you for coming on, man. This is a treat. Like I said, I appreciate what you guys are doing in this men's health space, because being a man is back. I'll tell you that. This is a lot cooler space than I ever thought I could exist in, and a way healthier being of myself than I ever thought could exist. Because like I said, my family is a little bit larger neck, you know. So yeah. I thank you for what you guys are doing. For sure, man. And it's a beautiful thing, and I wish nothing more than to just meet other men like yourself and help create men like you, right? Like, because you're a better version of you, you are able to go affect better change in the lives of the people you interact with, raise better children. And that is how we fix the world at large, one man at a time. And that's kind of the mission. Men are meant to do great things, and it takes one step at a time. So by no means is our journey done. Like, you know, I'm not sitting here, you know, happy with my progress. Like once you let what's that saying go? Once you let satisfactory creep in, you eventually self implode. So like, yeah, you know, I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm not gonna sit here and just be okay with, you know, the progress, right? It's just 1% better, the power 1%, see where it takes us. So I'll let you get out of here. I gotta run. I appreciate this, man. So we'll keep in touch. And you have to bootleg me some salsa ups one of these days, because I'm gonna try supplements. And this guy sounds like he's got the best stuff. So I don't know whether it's marketing or what, but probably a little bit of both. I think a little bit of both too. But anyways, you take care, man. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
And if he fails, at least fails while daring greater, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.